Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Tom, and thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I think it's a very sensible thing to do, incidentally, to move from the very stormy outdoors. This is clearly a very tricky day for everybody, and we hope that people stay safe. But I do miss actually being outside, having the opportunity to address rallies outside the Senate House, because it's sadly, in some ways, all too familiar, and I've lost count of the number of times I've joined you and others on picket lines over the years, and frankly, over the pensions dispute. I used to work for Unison, and I have experience of how lengthy and complicated pensions disputes can be, not least because of the endless arguments over actuarial valuations and all the rest of it. But I wish you well in this dispute. It's really, really important. Because making sure that the contributions are affordable and that the pensions that people are getting and will continue to get in future is absolutely essential, it seems to me, to maintain not only the standard of living of everyone involved, but also the viability of our higher education sector. But of course, it's not just about pensions. It's also, and I appreciate that this is a complicated set of disputes, but it's also about, of course, the wider issues of pay and conditions within the university sector. Far too many temporary contracts, in my view, and I know in your view too, and that needs to change. I'm just going to make one or two comments about the situation with universities in general, because I do feel that the sector is under constant assault. We have a universities minister who I sometimes think is the minister against universities. I had a pretty angry confrontation with her in the chamber the other week when she was launching this latest attack on what she and some of the other people in number 10 term low-value courses. To me, it is quite extraordinary that they can be trying to judge universities on a set of metrics which are completely wrong. Quite clearly, universities that are working very, very hard to widen participation are always going to have a challenge with retaining students, just in the nature of it. So it's such a foolish way of looking at things. And also this idea that the test is on future graduate earnings. Of course, we want people to be well paid, but it's not the only test. I think the university experience is transformative, vital in terms of social mobility, so many other important factors. But just the commodification of higher education and I fear possibly in schools, education in general, is just proceeding relentlessly. So I think there's so much that we need to explain to the wider world that we need to fight back against, because I think it's an insidious attack. And I don't think it's actually been sufficiently talked about. I'm so angry quite often when I particularly pick up some of the so-called quality newspapers and find the relentless attack on the University of Cambridge, which is pursued, I would say, on almost some points, almost weekly basis by the Times. So there is a real problem out there. It's part, of course, of this government's attack in general. It's part of their idea that somehow if they wage a culture war, that will somehow attract voters to them. I don't buy that argument, actually. I think most people are left cold by a lot of this. It's absolutely right that we challenge many of the things that have been taken for granted over many, many years in terms of teaching and curriculum. Quite right, that's exactly what universities are there to do. Also, whatever happened to the independence of universities, this government so trumpets. Freedom of speech, well, when it suits the government. So I think this is an area where we need to stand strong, where we need to fight back. I'm delighted that people have put themselves forward. Obviously today is a curious day in the sense we're doing this on Zoom, but I know that you've been out garnering support from the student body as well. It's very pleasing to see that through this week, and that will go on. So I wish you well in this dispute. I'm always an optimist. I always think that action and people getting involved makes a difference. And I so want to see significant changes to our entire educational system, so we get back to a system which actually understands that education is about much more than just the narrow financial returns, which I'm afraid seems to me to absolute dominate current government thinking. So some thoughts there. I dare say there will be responses and other views. I'm happy to try and answer some of those, but good luck in the weeks and I fear months ahead to try and win this dispute.